Better if they rescue it. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, to have a rally in the week of Chinese New Year, totally, totally, totally normal. And I would expect this is the bottom for a while. How high it goes, how far it goes, nobody knows. But I think it's the start of something, not the end. And as for the markets themselves, total three is still just consolidating sideways. So again, alts are not really getting ahead of themselves too much. You do have some alts, like you got Link performing quite well. You got IMX, I know it's pretty good, decent, right? But still, just within a consolidation. You had BitTensor before, which is well, actually still really strong. BitTensor's a nice breakout there. As for me with BitTensor, I've still no change. I'm not going to touch it here. I'm going to wait for whatever consolidation comes next. Render played out the Apple Vision Pro rally. I think now it can set up consolidation in here. And overall, I think the market's not, it's certainly not overheated. It's certainly not like toppy. Uh, it's not up only bull market or anything like just yet. I still think, again, which has been the case for a while, I think we are stuck in this trap. As soon as we close a weekly above this 1.65, I expect that is the market signaling that we're following the green path. There we go. I knew I drew a couple. If we just start to slowly grind higher on the total cap, I think that's the bottom's in. I don't think we're going to bounce up to here and then go lower. I think if we're going to go lower, it's going to come from here, like the red path. We push down a bit lower and maybe fill in some of this gap, drop down a bit back towards the breakout level or whatever. But as of right now, um, not too much, not too much that really concerns me. And staying long, spot long, is the only rational choice here. I think when you zoom out and you remember that this is the beginning, not the end, just stay spot long. Doesn't mean that everything's going to moon right away. Uh, Tactical trading around that. There's not that much that's trending cleanly. So, this is the phase for me. This is the phase of the market where you take you take a lot of either you don't trade, right? Or you take a lot of entries and take a lot of stop losses, but not full stops. I mean like enter, cut a break even, enter, cut at a small loss, enter, cut at a small profit. So if you're a more experienced trader, at least that's how you should be approaching it. You should have your early invalidations because the time for just getting long stuff and waiting and it'll eventually break out. That was October, November, December. It doesn't usually that kind of phase doesn't follow with the exact same phase again typically. So that's how I'm approaching it. I'm waiting for trades to line up. I don't see much yet that really gets me interested. But once we see some moves back down and supports getting confirmed, I'll be keen to get long. But Bitcoin itself for me is the one. So we had a little bit of a sell off this morning just before I started recording. To me, that just looks like here, right? As price went chop sideways, we saw quite a sharp increase of open interest. So I think after the rally up this morning, people were just longing the top. And so they've got flushed out. And now we just need to wait and see where it goes. This is all just happening kind of within the context of a wider range. And I would wait and see where price goes next. I don't know. I just don't see a clear case for a breakdown or a breakout at this point. When price is compressing like this, and it's just getting compressed into a tight, even if you draw it across here, you get the idea. It's making higher lows, but it's also making lower highs. That's just a sign that the market's compressing and consolidating and waiting for a break. So right here is the worst place to bet. If you're like, it's going to break down, but it can go down to there and go to there and then go down. Oh, it's going to pump. Yeah, but it can pump up and then down and then up. So usually you want to wait for that something more clear to come. I think if anything, it's more likely that we grind higher because Currently, the thing that matters more are the higher lows to me. That's an indication that price is getting supported on the way up. And given that we're already in an early uptrend here, I think the continuation is more likely. Right? If you have an impulse higher and a compression, you would expect, all else being equal, you expect continuation. But at the same time, the market's not exactly full of life, so you don't have to be. You don't want to put your opinion into it too much. You want to, again, just be patient, have your levels. For me, the levels where I want to get really involved again is around this 40k level, if it fills in that gap. Or if I see a strong move up, then I'll be looking at bottom being in and waiting for the reaction. Doesn't mean that the bottom is in. You can always go up to 45, meet strong resistance, and go all the way back down. But I think that if price comes up here and just starts to chop around, when you start seeing this kind of thing where price just seems to keep grinding higher and higher and higher, I think then that's when the supply-demand imbalance eventually breaks. And as we get towards March and going into the halving, I think that's when we go up. I think bears are out of time already, to be honest. I'm long spot. I want 40k for another long. I'd like to see the the early longs get flushed out into there and get long. But for spot holdings, yeah, I don't know if you're going to get a lower price. You might, but we did have the dip and we bought the dip. And that's what you're supposed to do in a bull market, is buy the dip, don't try and impose your will onto the market. I wouldn't be surprised with all the bad news. Time is really your best friend here as a bull. Time is a bear's worst enemy. There's been bad news after bad news after bad news. The ETF volumes are down. Nobody cares about them. Fed aren't going to cut rates in March. Bearish. Commercial real estate's collapsing. Bearish. China's stimulating and they can't even fucking pump the markets. Bearish. Everything's bearish, bearish, bearish. Yet, Bitcoin doesn't care. If you get loads of bearish news and price doesn't move, and we're already in an uptrend and we're in a bull market and we've the halving coming, to me that's just telling me that absorption is happening. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that this can't be distribution and maybe I'm wrong and it just flushes all the way back down. Sure, that can happen. But every day I wake up and do these videos, if Bitcoin just continues to be here, chopping around, when the news is bad, that's bullish. If Bitcoin was doing all this and there was good news after good news after good news, that's bad. But it's the opposite. Right? Everyone's trying to FUD the markets here to get lower entries. And so far, it's not working. But we'll see. So, that's it, GM. See you later on the live stream, 5 p.m. UTC. GM, GM, GM.